Good morning, co-teachers. I wanted to send out this video real quick just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Yesterday, the students learned the algorithm, the actual reasoning as to why we solve our long division problems with decimals a certain way. So I wanted to build up from what they did with you last time you had a home day and then where they're going today. All right, so this is what they had last time in their homework. They were supposed to be reasoning as to why a decimal would be placed where in our quotient. So a lot of the times in class, I really try to keep using dividend, divisor, and quotient just so they get used to understanding which is which. So you use it as much as you want. It's okay if you use answer instead of quotient. I just tried to use it as much as possible so they're very familiar. I'm not sure if I sent this to you at the beginning of the year, but I went through a video that talked about how math is a language, and I talked to the students about this. And the more that we practice that language, the more comfortable they feel, just like if we were speaking Spanish or any other language. It's much better if we practice it as we do life so that it comes naturally. All right, so this is what they were given on the last lesson that you worked with them. And they were supposed to place a decimal somewhere in the quotient that was given. There was no decimal there, but a decimal does belong there. So in class, I would talk to them and I would say, okay, this is like $1.26 being divided into, let's say, 50-cent parts. Now, right away, the students know how many 50-cent parts come out of $1.26. And we always say, without going over, don't go over. So I told them, so here is the quotient they gave us, but the decimal is missing. So let's talk this through. This is what it's actually saying. All right, $1.26. I'm going to split it up into about 50-cent parts. Do you think I can do that 2,625 times? And they'd be like, no. 262 times, and by then they already knew. No, you only have two of those. You only have two. So I would say, okay, then logically, with our reasoning, we know that the decimal goes right after that first two, because we would break it into two full 48-cent parts or 50-cent parts if we were rounding, and we would have some left. So that's where we left off the day before your last home day. All right, and so this is where we went from that. So they were not given the answer, but I'm going to use the same numbers since we already have them and talk to you about what we did. So our first step was to get a problem in this form and use the long division symbol, or sometimes I call it the long division box. So I would go ahead and write that out. And I would say, okay, first step is you have to know where the numbers go correctly. So we need our divisor on the outside of our long division symbol, and our dividend goes into the inside. So that is the very first step, is just allowing your student time to memorize which one goes where, because when we read it this way, it can get a little confusing if a student just assumes that that same order goes in our long division symbol. So then we would say, okay, how can we make this problem look like something we've seen before? And we looked at symbols on a video, we watched it all out, but this was the time where we were actually going to now apply it together. So an easier thing to do than necessarily dividing our decimals and decimals, for the most part, it's easier if we're working with a whole number. So in order to make 48 hundredths into a whole number, we would have to move that decimal, and we would move it 2 times, 1 and then 2. Now, what they did with the students is they related that to place value, multiplying by 10 to the second power, or 100, which is actually every time we're multiplying, we're moving that decimal and so on. So we had seen all of that before. Now they're just bringing it together. The other rule that we talked about was whenever you work with a problem, you can't just change one number. Even if we're working with just place value, you have to do the same to the next one. And so that's where we went next with that. So now we have 48 into 126. Now they didn't see this answer. They didn't know that was already there. They were just working with our problem. And so again, when we move the decimal 2 places, that's the same as multiplying it by 10 to the second power, or just 100. And so that was also in our practice together in class. The students had to be able to identify either or working those together because they're still building on that skill and that foundation from the beginning of the year. So going back to the problem, we said, all right, how many 48s can go into 126 without going over? And they knew right away, or most of them did, that it would be 2, just like the same logic we used above. All right, so what's 48 times 2? Or what's 48 plus 48? And what I do with the students on the side is we'll choose one, and I'll let them choose one for that time, that little step, and we'll work it through. We mostly stay with our multiplication, but some students feel really comfortable just adding it quickly. They have that gift just to quickly add, and so they're free to do that as well, and they have their whiteboards that they're working on. Okay, I'm going to try to hurry up because I see this video is getting long. All right, so we would work out the problem, and this is how I do it in class all of the time. I would say, what is 2 times 8? And they tell me 16. And I would say, what's 2 times 4 plus 1? And they would say, oh, 8 plus 1, oh, that's 9. All right, so we have 96. So now we can apply that into our problem here. We have 96, and then we're subtracting. 6 minus 6 is 0, and 12 minus 9, all right, 3. Are we done with this? No, because I've been telling the students we need to kick out those remainders and keep working the problem until we've completed. So our next step is I need some zeros, but before I can do any zeros, I have to now pop that decimal up into our quotient so that we know what we're working with, because we can't just add zeros randomly. We know though, but anything after a decimal, we can add zeros and it doesn't change the value. All right, so a 0, we're dropping it down. Now we have 300. And for time's sake, we're gonna go through the same thing, but rather quickly. So I would talk to them, okay, say this is 50 cents. How many 50 cents could go into 300 or even $3 rather, and not go over? And they would know, okay, so like 2 is $1, and then 2 more is $2, and then 2 more is $3, so 6. And I always try to reference something that they've known in life so that it doesn't seem overwhelming. And then again, on the side, we would do 48 times 6. I've already done that, so I know that it's 288. We would take them through the subtraction until we have, we're ready to work through to the next step. All right, so we know 0 can't take away 8, and I still do this every time when I'm up there. I say, okay, what's 0 take away 8? Trying to trip them up, trying to see if they might fall for it, and they usually don't. Okay, can't borrow from that 0. We're going to borrow from here. Now that's a 9, so this can be a 10. And then we do 10 take away 8, 9 take away 8, and 2 take away 0. Or 2 take away 2 is 0. Okay, can't finish yet. Still need another 0. All right, we're still working through it. That same question. Okay, 48 into 120 or $1.20. How many are there? Oh, well, we know that's 2 because that was so close to the last one that they gave us. And just working through, and still can't stop. One more 0. Oh, this looks like something that we worked with before. We're getting close. We're getting close. I know it's a 5. We have our answer up there, but I would still on this side take them through all of it, we would find that that's 240, 240, whew, nice and clean, and we're done. So yes, a super long video. I'm so sorry. 10 minutes just to get through what we're doing. Real quick recapping. This guy needs to be a whole number. He is the one that determines for anything how many times we're moving the decimal. Right now, our lessons are clean and easy where it ends up being the same amount inside with our dividend, but I told them, and we talked about it in class, that doesn't always happen. And then they're just working it through, making sure that they understand that they need to add zeros and that we're not going to have a remainder. We're going to keep working until it's 0. All right, thank you for your time. Sorry this is so long. I hope you have a great day. Can't wait to see you or your kids or whomever on Thursday. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.